when they tell you that. All right. I think my slide keeps moving out. Let me see. All right. Stakeholders. Stakeholders. All right. So stakeholders, and maybe I should kind of explain who they are. I'm sure you guys know who the developers are, the people who actually build the functionality that we present to the stakeholders. The product owner is actually the person who gives us prioritization, who converses and holds frequent engagements with the stakeholders to understand what's the most value to them and how to kind of articulate the work. And the stakeholders are the people responsible for the work we are doing, and the people we actually demo the functionality to. They're the people who actually own the business in many ways, all right? Depending on your organization you are. Sometimes the stakeholders will say, I don't have time. I don't have time to come for your review. So therefore you keep carrying your story sprint on sprint. I don't have time to come for I don't have time to give you any requirements. I don't have time. I don't know. I don't have time. My calendar is filled up, it's maxed up. We get all the things. These are some of the things they say to us. I don't have time. I know what I want, but I don't know what I want. I can see some members of my group here. We talk about this all the time, guys, that stakeholders, they don't know what they want, but they know what they don't want. It's very critical that everyone understands this now. Stakeholders, most times, they don't know what they want. They don't know. When you come up before the sprint planning, during your sprint, your stakeholders engagement or your stakeholders requirement meetings, and tell them, hey, stakeholders, this is the story you want. How do you want us to build it? I don't know. Just go and work. They don't know what they want most times, but they know what they don't want. The moment you give them something substandard, the moment you give them something that doesn't work or doesn't fulfill their needs, they'll say, oh, we don't want this. Reject, decline, build something else. Sometimes the prototypes we give them is what stimulates them to think out of the box to give us the requirements. So get prepared when you're trying to drive changes, regardless of your role. Ladies and gentlemen, regardless of your role, whether you're a Scrum Master, whether you're an Agile transformation lead, whether you're an Agile coach, we all are stakeholders in driving organizational agility in different levels. At the teams level, the program level, organizational level, divisional level, we all are responsible for driving those agile changes. So you will always see stakeholders who will tell you, we don't know what we want, or I know what I don't want, but I don't know what I want. So they'll probably not give you stakeholders. You have to be able to drive the team or encourage the team to think out of the box and have the lean, agile mindset of actually developing out functionalities, even if they don't have the full requirements. We'll talk about that. All right. Another thing we talk about stakeholders is I can put things into the sprint at any given time. All right. I can put things into the sprint at any given time. So, it's funny because stakeholders tell us that all the time. They think they own the business, and which they do, to be honest, but they can't also just put things into the sprint, because what happens is there will be a scope creep. Ladies and gentlemen, a scope creep happens when things are added to the sprint that changes the dynamics of the velocity and changes the scope and actually hinders the team from actually meeting the sprint goal. All right, I just needed to pause for like 7 seconds to make sure you guys are following what I'm saying. All right, so scope creep is what happens when things are added to the sprint that changes the sprint goal. It changes the amount of committed work into the sprint. And a lot of things happens when there's scope creep. And that's why there are different methodologies that can help the stakeholders meet their needs. If you are working in a very volatile environment or a very frequently changing environment where the requirements keep changing, or where there's a continuous need to keep adding work into the sprint, then there's a different methodology that might be better. You might start to have the conversation of maybe we can do Kanban, and maybe there's a way we can use the right framework. Maybe sprinting is not the right framework for it. Because I remember a time in 2019, I was at Fidelity Investment, ladies and gentlemen, and we had this engagement with this data migration team, and we had the stakeholders that were like, they were managers in the team. And what they would do at every given time is to, regardless of where we are in the sprint, they'll pull out like 5 stories from the sprint and just say, hey, work on these new sets of stories, regardless of where we were. We will absorb, like, for example, 15 stories, 15 user stories into the sprint, and they'll put like 5 days into the sprint, they'll put like 7 stories out and tell them, oh, we need to work on these new 7 stories. So the team never had a direction as to what we needed to do. I had to go. This is me putting myself in the box of a change agent. I had to go and get into that conversation of, hey, what can we do differently? If this is the way the requirements are going to keep coming, we have a very volatile, high changing requirements that keep coming, our priority, for the lack of better term. Maybe we can work with Kanban and then put together some work in progress limits in such a way that when the developers pull in like 5 or 4 tickets or so, whatever it looks like, and you change whatever is on the to-do or open column, we can be proactive enough to say, after this 5, which will probably round up the next 2 or 3 days, we'll be able to grab the next tickets on the queue. So it just makes us a little bit faster instead of always going to the backlog and pulling things into the sprint. It changes the velocity, changes the dynamics of the team. A lot of developers are starting to work on this. They're like 70% in on the work. The work is pulled out for a more high priority work. It's very important that you keep stakeholders' mindset first, but you also need to remember that one of the key things you do is also to shield the developers from distractions and anything that could hinder them from getting the work done. And sometimes the work could hinder the work from being done. I'll try to say it again. Sometimes the real work can hinder the work from being done. All right. So these are some of the things the stakeholders say, what they say. All right.